Hello and welcome to the start of this CSS tutorial playlist where I will explain how to use CSS to build and design your website. Before we start, I have a playlist on my channel where I went over HTML, which is essential to know if you want to learn CSS, so check that out if you haven't already. To start off, you may ask, what is CSS? CSS is a language used to style and design a HTML document. It just describes how our HTML elements should be displayed. So we first need to add our CSS style sheet to our HTML document. We need to link them together. So there are three ways in which we can do this. I have created a video on all three methods that is shown up on the screen now that you can check out. But in these videos we will use an external style sheet where we will write our CSS. So in my folder we need to create ourselves a new style sheet. And I'll just name it style.css. Now once we have this file, we need to link our HTML document to our style sheet. And the way that we do that is, in our head, in our HTML document, we need to create ourselves a link. So we will write link, okay, and then we'll write rel equal to, and then we will write style sheet. We are just telling our HTML document that whatever we are linking here is a style sheet. And then we need to refer to the actual style sheet that we want to use. And the one that we are using is style.css, because that's the name of our style sheet, style.css. And just like that, we have successfully linked our HTML document to our style sheet. Now we will start adding our CSS. So firstly we need to create a HTML element to design. So we will add a h1 header. So let's just add ourselves a basic h1 header and we will just write, this is my header. We will save that, go to our web page, refresh, and you can see it's just a default. So now it's time to add some CSS. So if we go to our style sheet, so the first part of our syntax is the selector. The selector points to the HTML tag that we want to target. So if we want to target our h1 element, all we have to write is h1. And then we'll do the open and close curly brackets. The next part of our syntax is the declaration. This includes how we want to style the HTML tag. And this includes two properties. So the first property is actually the property, which is what we want to change. So if we want to change the color, we will write color. And the second part is the value, and this is what we want to change it to. So let's say we write blue, for example. So the first part is what we want to change, and the second part is how we want to change it to. So we want to change the color and we want to set it to blue. So if we save that, we go back to our web page, we refresh this, and you can see that the header is now blue. The format of this syntax will usually stay the same. The selector will change, however, depending on the HTML element. So this selector here will change depending on how we want to modify our HTML element. So let's say that we have ourselves two headers, but we only want to add CSS to this second header. So we need a way to uniquely identify this header from this header. So the way we do that is we can add ourselves an ID and we'll just name a header. So this allows us a way to give this h1 element a unique identifier that our CSS can use to add CSS. So in our style sheet, you can see that we have h1. By having h1 here, means it targets all elements that are h1. So it will target this element and this element. However, what we can do is we can specifically target this header with this ID. Okay, so the way we can do that is we can use hashtag and then we can do a header. By using hashtag, it will look for the ID that is called header. Okay, so hashtag header will look for the ID that is named header. So if we save this and if we go to our web page, we refresh this, you can see that our first HTML element is just default, and our second HTML element is now blue. And you can see that we have targeted our second HTML element, the H1 with header, and that's the CSS that we added. And you can see that this first one we didn't do anything to. Now, the selector is a bit different if we use different elements, for example. So if we use ourselves a class instead of an ID, instead of a hashtag, we will need to use the dot. So if we save these, go back, you can see it's still the same. So for classes, we use the dot, and then for IDs, we use the hashtag. Now there is actually another way that we can do. So we can have certain elements with the same class name to be affected. So let's say that we have ourselves H1, and then we have ourselves a P for paragraph. But we also give this the class header. So let's say that we only want to target the paragraphs that are in the class header, but we don't want to target any other element that is inside of the same class. So the way that we can do this is, we can target what element we want. So let's say we want to target element P. So we write P. And then let's say we only want to target element P inside of class header. So we will do P dot header. And what this does is, it will target only the element P, so P for paragraph, that is part of the class header. So if we have ourselves another P element, this is a paragraph. Okay, so we have ourselves a H1 class header, a P class header, and a P, just a normal P. Now you can see we are targeting P, so it will target these two here, but then it will only target header. So since this is not a class header, this one is, we will only apply CSS to this one here. So if you go back to our page, you refresh this, and you can see only this element here is affected by the CSS. Now let's say that we have ourselves a couple more elements. Let's say we have ourselves a P, then let's say we have ourselves, let's add ourselves a H1, and I'll just name this header. And let's say we have ourselves a H4, for example. Okay, and then let's say this is just another, this is header 4. Let's say that we want to add CSS to all 4 of these elements. One way that we can do it is, we can do it this way. So we can add P, then we can add a CSS. Then we can do the exact same thing for H1. And then we can just do the exact same thing for H4. So we could do it this way, but this is just a bit too much. What we could do is, instead of having all these, what we can have is P, and then if you separate all elements that we want to affect, so we have P, we have H1, and then we have H4. So this is just a way to group elements that have the same CSS. So if we go back to our page now, we refresh this, you can see that all of these elements are affected by the CSS. Finally, the last part of this video that I will go over is comments, and how we can add comments to our style sheet. So the way that we add comments is, we just do a slash, a star, another star, and a slash, and everything inside of here will be a comment. So this is a comment. So that is about it for this video. Hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.